In the summer of 1971, a relatively unknown musician walked into London's Trident Studios to record a cover song that would change his life forever. Within months, that song, Without You, would become one of the most iconic ballads of all time. But Harry Nilsson wasn't your typical rock star. He was a contradiction. A Grammy-winning artist who never toured. A songwriter's songwriter who found his biggest success covering other people's music. And a golden-voiced singer who seemed determined to destroy his greatest instrument. The Beatles called him their favorite group, though he was just one man. Frank Sinatra praised his talents, while John Lennon both admired and enabled his wildest excesses. He wrote children's stories that became animated classics, crafted perfect pop songs that still resonate today, and created albums that influenced generations of musicians. Yet despite his incredible success, many people know his voice without knowing his name. This is the story of Harry Nilsson, the most famous musician you've never heard of. A bankrupt circus performer's son who became a teenage bank manager, then transformed himself into one of the most innovative and enigmatic artists of his era. It's a tale of spectacular triumph and heartbreaking self-destruction, of unmatched creativity and missed opportunities, of a unique talent who did everything his own way, for better or worse. Early life and background. Harry Edward Nilsson III was born into poverty in Brooklyn's Bushwick neighborhood on June 15, 1941. His early life reads like a Dickens novel, abandoned by his father at age 3, bouncing between relatives, and working odd jobs to help his mother make ends meet. Young Harry's one constant comfort was music, particularly the harmony-rich sounds of his uncle's recordings of classical performers and vocal groups. At just 15, Harry landed a job at a bank in Los Angeles, where his mathematical mind and natural charm helped him rise to the position of manager before he was even old enough to drink. But at night, in a tiny apartment with a cheap piano, he taught himself music theory, composition, and the intricacies of songwriting. Despite never learning to read music properly, his perfect pitch and innate understanding of musical structure would later astonish trained professionals. The bank job provided an unexpected advantage, access to the latest IBM computers, which Harry would secretly use late at night to practice writing songs and arranging music. This early exposure to technology would later influence his innovative approach to studio recording. During these years, he also began haunting Los Angeles music venues, gradually making connections in the industry, including Phil Spector's circle of musicians and songwriters. By his early 20s, Harry was living a double life, bank manager by day, budding songwriter by night. He began placing songs with small local acts, earning modest royalties that gave him hope for a musical career. His breakthrough came when the Monkees recorded his song, Cuddly Toy, giving him his first major songwriting credit. The success convinced him to quit the bank and pursue music full-time, a decision that would transform popular music in ways no one could have predicted. Rise to prominence. In 1967, a pivotal moment changed Harry Nilsson's trajectory forever. During a press conference, when asked about their favorite American group, the Beatles responded with an unexpected answer: Nilsson. The impact was immediate, but there was just one catch. Nilsson wasn't a group at all, but a single performer who had mastered the art of multi-track recording to create complex, layered vocal harmonies all by himself. The Beatles' endorsement, particularly from John Lennon and Paul McCartney, catapulted him from obscurity to instant industry recognition. RCA Victor quickly signed Nilsson to a record deal, giving him unprecedented creative control over his recordings, a rarity for artists at the time. His debut album, Pandemonium Shadow Show, showcased his extraordinary vocal range and innovative arrangements, including a groundbreaking cover of the Beatles' You Can't Do That ingeniously incorporated snippets of 16 other Beatles songs into its backing track. But it was his recording of Fred Neil's Everybody's Talkin' that would first bring Nilsson's voice to the masses. When the song was chosen as the theme for the film Midnight Cowboy, it earned him his first Grammy and became an instant classic. The success was bittersweet for Nilsson, who had wanted his original composition, I Guess the Lord Must Be in New York City, to be used instead. This began a pattern in his career where his biggest commercial successes would often come from interpreting other artists' material despite his own masterful songwriting abilities. During this period, Nilsson's reputation as a songwriter continued to grow. His composition, One, became a hit for Three Dog Night, while artists as diverse as the Yardbirds and the Monkees sought out his material. His album, Harry, demonstrated his versatility, ranging from the whimsical The Puppy Song, written for Paul McCartney's Mary Hopkin, to the sophisticated I Guess the Lord Must Be in New York City. By the turn of the decade, Nilsson had established himself as both a commercial force and a critical darling. His ability to bridge the gap between pop accessibility and artistic innovation made him unique in the music landscape. He could craft perfect 3-minute pop songs while also creating conceptual works that pushed the boundaries of what popular music could be. The stage was set for what would become his most successful and creatively fertile period, though no one could have predicted the dramatic turns his career would soon take. Golden Period, 1971 marked the beginning of Nilsson's creative and commercial peak with the release of Nilsson Schmilsson, an album that would define his career. Working with producer Richard Perry, Nilsson crafted a masterpiece that perfectly balanced commercial appeal with artistic ambition. The album spawned 3 hit singles, including the powerhouse ballad Without You, a cover of Badfinger's original that showcased Nilsson's incredible vocal range and earned him his 2nd Grammy Award. The song hit #1 in multiple countries, becoming his signature tune. The album also produced Coconut, a quirky Caribbean-flavored novelty song that became a cultural touchstone, and Jump Into the Fire, a hard-driving rock number that showed Nilsson could belt with the best of them. The diversity of these singles demonstrated his remarkable versatility as a performer. Nilsson Schmilsson went gold and remains his most commercially successful album, perfectly capturing his ability to be simultaneously mainstream and subversive. Following this success, Nilsson took an unexpected turn with Son of Schmilsson, a more experimental follow-up that featured guest appearances from Ringo Starr and Peter Frampton. The album included the controversial country parody Joy, the oddly touching Remember Christmas, and the sardonic You're Breaking My Heart, with its deliberately shocking lyrics. While it alienated some fans of his more commercial work, it demonstrated Nilsson's unwillingness to simply repeat past successes. During this period, Nilsson also ventured into other creative territories. He wrote and performed the soundtrack for Otto Preminger's film Skidoo, created the groundbreaking children's story The Point, which became an animated TV special narrated by Ringo Starr, and continued to push the boundaries of studio recording techniques. His perfectionism in the studio became legendary. He would spend hours layering vocals and experimenting with different acoustic environments to achieve the exact sound he wanted. The apex of his golden period came with his collaboration with producer Derek Taylor on A Little Touch of Schmilsson in the Night, a collection of pop standards that preceded Rod Stewart's American Songbook series by decades. The album showcased Nilsson's pure vocal abilities and his deep appreciation for classic songwriting, featuring lush arrangements by veteran arranger Gordon Jenkins. While not a commercial success, it remains one of his most admired works, demonstrating his ability to interpret classic material with both respect and originality. Personal life and controversies. The mid-1970s marked a turbulent period in Nilsson's life, most infamously during his lost weekend with John Lennon during Lennon's separation from Yoko Ono. What began as a creative partnership quickly devolved into legendary drinking sessions at Los Angeles' Troubadour Club. One notorious incident saw the two friends being ejected from the club for heckling the Smothers Brothers, with Nilsson and Lennon wearing tampons on their heads. These escapades, while making for colorful rock and roll stories, began to impact Nilsson's professional life and vocal abilities. Behind the public spectacle, Nilsson's personal life was complicated. His first marriage to Sandy Butter ended in divorce, though he later found stability with his second wife, Una, with whom he had 6 children. However, financial troubles loomed. Despite his success, Nilsson's business manager embezzled most of his earnings, leaving him in a precarious financial position that would affect his later years. The recording sessions for Pussycats, produced by John Lennon, proved particularly destructive. Nilsson ruptured a vocal cord, but kept it secret from Lennon, continuing to record despite the injury. This decision would have lasting consequences for his voice, permanently damaging his famous 3.5-octave range. The album's title itself came from their attempt to convince RCA executives that they were recording sweet, innocent music while actually indulging in rather excessive behavior. His relationship with RCA Records became increasingly strained during this period. The label wanted him to produce more commercial material like Without You, while Nilsson insisted on following his artistic instincts, releasing increasingly eccentric albums. This tension, combined with his declining vocal abilities and changing musical tastes, began to affect his commercial success, though he never lost his reputation as a brilliant, if difficult, artist. Artistic innovation. Nilsson's artistic legacy extends far beyond his hit singles, marked by innovations that revolutionized recording techniques and songwriting approaches. His masterful understanding of studio technology and multi-track recording allowed him to create complex vocal arrangements that sounded like entire choirs, despite being composed entirely of his own voice. This technique, while not invented by him, was perfected in songs like All I Think About Is You and his famous cover of Many Rivers to Cross. His songwriting defied conventional structures, often incorporating unexpected key changes and unconventional time signatures while maintaining melodic accessibility. Songs like 1941 demonstrated his ability to tell complete, complex stories within the confines of a pop song, while Think About Your Troubles showed his gift for making sophisticated concepts accessible through music. Nilsson was also a pioneer in the music video format before MTV existed. The Point, his animated film, preceded Yellow Submarine in its approach to matching animation with a continuous musical narrative. His innovative use of sound effects and stereo positioning in recordings like Nilsson Schmilsson influenced generations of producers and engineers. Perhaps most remarkably, Nilsson achieved all this without ever performing live concerts during his peak years. He refused to tour, making him one of the few artists of his era to maintain a successful career without live performances. Instead, he focused his energy on studio perfection, pushing the boundaries of what could be achieved with recording technology. His attention to detail in the studio was legendary. He would spend hours adjusting microphone positions and experimenting with room acoustics to achieve the perfect sound. Challenges in later years. The late 1970s and 1980s marked a difficult period in Nilsson's career. The permanent damage to his voice from the Pussycats sessions forced him to adapt his singing style, losing the ethereal high notes that had been his trademark. Despite this setback, he continued to record, though with diminishing commercial success. His 1977 album Nilsson, considered by many to be his last great work, was overshadowed by RCA's focus on promoting Elvis Presley's final releases. Financial pressures mounted after the discovery of his business manager's embezzlement. Nilsson found himself taking on commercial projects he might have previously rejected, including writing the soundtrack for Robert Altman's Popeye film starring Robin Williams. Though the soundtrack showcased his continuing creativity, it failed to revive his commercial fortunes. The 1980s saw Nilsson largely retreat from the music industry, focusing on family life and real estate investments. He did occasionally return to the studio, recording demos and working on various projects, but released no new albums. The tragic murder of John Lennon in 1980 deeply affected him, leading him to become an advocate for gun control. His final years were marked by health issues, including a devastating heart attack in 1993. Harry Nilsson passed away on January 15, 1994, leaving behind a complex legacy of musical innovation and unfulfilled potential. Legacy and influence. Harry Nilsson's influence reverberates through modern music in ways both obvious and subtle. His perfectionist studio techniques and innovative vocal arrangements laid groundwork for artists from Radiohead to the Flaming Lips. Contemporary singers like Randy Newman and Ben Folds have acknowledged their debt to his sophisticated songwriting style, while his fearless genre blending has inspired countless indie artists. The 2010 documentary, Who is Harry Nilsson and Why is Everybody Talking About Him?, sparked renewed interest in his work, introducing him to a new generation. His songs continue to appear in films and television, with Gotta Get Up gaining new life as the recurring theme in Netflix's Russian Doll and Without You remaining a favorite for singing competitions worldwide. Musicians as diverse as LCD Soundsystem, Jellyfish, and the Decemberists have cited him as an influence, particularly his ability to balance commercial appeal with artistic integrity. The combination of his sophisticated songwriting, studio innovation, and distinctive vocal style has earned him recognition as one of pop music's most original and influential artists. Harry Nilsson's story remains a testament to the power of raw talent and the complexity of artistic genius. His refusal to compromise his vision, even at the cost of commercial success, set a precedent for future independent artists. While he may have never achieved the household name status of some of his contemporaries, his influence on popular music remains profound and far-reaching. In many ways, Nilsson was ahead of his time, a studio perfectionist in an era of live performance, a genre-defying artist before such flexibility became common. His legacy lives on in every artist who dares to follow their own unique creative vision, regardless of commercial pressures. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the life and legacy of Harry Nilsson, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to catch more stories about music's most fascinating artists. Leave a comment below sharing your favorite Nilsson song or a fact that surprised you most. Join us next week as we explore another legendary musician who changed the face of popular music.